Hey friends, how are you guys doing today? I hope you're doing so well, and I'm excited for today's video because we are in my basement. We're doing the work that kind of scares me the most, and that is working on all the piles of clothes I have around my house, which is mostly focused in the basement. I have humongous piles around me. I don't know if you can see some of them, but I have all of these things in piles that I have recently shown you guys in videos. And so my workflow basically right now is after I go and take you guys thrifting on a thrift with me, I bring things home, share the haul with you guys, and then it comes into this room, which is where I take pictures. I take pictures right over here up on this wall. I have just a nail in the wall, and I hang my hangers on that and take pictures. And once I have taken pictures of things, then I take them over to the next room, and once I list them, then I put them away. So today we're going to be focusing on some things that I've recently hauled. I'm going to be putting them on hangers and taking pictures of things, but I thought let's make this a work with me. It makes it easier for me to work and to conquer these things that are like stressful or overwhelming to me. Piles of clothes are overwhelming to me. Going thrifting, that's not. Sharing videos with you guys, that's not. But actually doing the, day-to-day things behind the scenes, that's kind of more definitely something that weighs on me. So I like to do these things with you guys because it gives me something fun to do while I do it. So I'm going to be putting things on hangers while I talk with you guys. And I was trying to think of what I could share with you guys. I like to give you guys life updates and things like that. But today I thought, let's talk about toxic work experiences. I think this should be fun. I'm always curious to hear what other people's experiences have been like in the actual corporate world before they've started reselling or working for themselves or doing things like that. So I thought I'd share my experiences with you guys today. I've talked about them very briefly, but not very much so in depth. So today I'm going to focus mainly on my first job outside of college, the one where I first went full-time. I've had so many jobs throughout my life, and I know I'm young, but I've always been, working since I was little. So my parents had their own business growing up, and that's a story for another time because that's a very interesting business, and I want to share that too. But so I grew up working at their business since I was like probably about 10 years old. And so I always had jobs. I was a nanny in high school for two girls that lived in the town nearby. And by nanny, I mean I wasn't just babysitting. I was there every day, like at 7 a.m. I was there until their parents got home from work. So like I've always been working. So I'm not unfamiliar with hard work. And every summer throughout college, I had internships where I was working at different churches, things like that. So my first job, though, outside of college, I worked in marketing, which is very, very interesting because I got 2 degrees in college. One was in sociology and one was in intercultural studies. And intercultural studies was partly a ministry degree. So I did go to a Christian college and I studied ministry, and then I really have always loved to write and to edit. And so my first job out of college was actually working at a stair supply company, and I was their writing person. I was their content creator, and I was like kind of in charge of a content creation team. So I was writing and editing any copy that was for the whole company, and this was not a small company. So I was working there, and I knew right away, well, I didn't know because this was my first job outside of college, but right away, my first few days on the job were strange in that, so whenever I went into work, I had to go into the marketing room. The marketing room was where all of us were squished together. I didn't have a desk when I first got started at this job. My first 2 or 3 weeks, I didn't have a computer. I was supposed to sit on a couch in the marketing room, and I didn't have a computer. So sometimes they would I would borrow one of my other coworkers' computers. It was very strange. And then this room, though, that all of us worked in, had no windows. So it was just like this box that there was probably 12 of us squished into. But the thing was, it had fluorescent lighting overhead, and some of the guys that worked there, I was the only girl, some of the guys that worked there didn't like the fluorescent lighting, and so they refused to turn on the lights in the room. So we worked in this room with no windows, and then they refused to let me turn on the lights in the room. So my first job out of college, I don't know what's wrong, what's acceptable, but I literally worked from the couch with no computer, with no lights on, all day, every day as I started learning this job. And let me tell you, it was horrible. It was so bad. I would literally have to go, I would go to the bathroom multiple times throughout the day just so I could be in somewhere with a light and like try not to cry. Like I was so overwhelmed by it, and I was just so like, I felt so like, oh, I should be okay with all of this. I should be fine. Why am I reacting this way? I've worked so much, but at lunchtime, I would literally go to parks and stuff, and I would just call my mom, and I would just cry. I didn't know what I was feeling then, but I was literally having these like anxiety, panic attacks, and I didn't know why. I think a lot of it had to do with the people I was working with were not very kind. I was literally working in the dark. I had no control over my surroundings, and I had no control over if I actually had the tools I needed to perform the job that they were giving me, which was really stressful. And on top of that, I was in charge of overseeing, we had freelance writers that worked for the company. And instead of me being like a content manager, they couldn't give me that title because then they'd have to pay me for managing a team. I think my title was like content creation specialist. And then I just happened to be in charge of 2 other freelance writers and oversaw all of their work, gave them all of their projects, edited all of their work, and did all these other things, which in hindsight, if I knew what I knew now, I would not be doing that kind of stuff. But I didn't know. I was young, and I had nothing to compare it to because all of my experiences were usually like church-based experiences, and or it was for like home business, like family-run businesses, or I was working like as a nanny, like all these things that if I would have known what I know now, I would not have stayed at this freaking job, because that's like the easy part. That was like where my job was easy and not bad, was the beginning, even though I felt all those feelings and I didn't know why I felt so panicky all the time. And looking back, oh my gosh, my body knew that that place was not going to be good for me, but I stayed because it was pretty good money. It was my first job out of college, and I was making like $40K or something. I don't even know at this point, but I just was like, oh, if I can stick this out, I can earn some money. And that's how a lot of people feel in their jobs, and a lot of people do feel that way and are feeling really quite trapped by their circumstances, and that you have to make money, which is hard, but sometimes you get stuck in these horrible work environments and experiences, and you just feel like you can't find a way out. And maybe my work experience doesn't sound that bad to everybody. For me, I think it was compounded. I didn't know at the time that I have anxiety, and I do have anxiety. I take medicine for it, and so those feelings that were rising up, I think, were like the first signs of, oh my gosh, this is a place that's causing me a lot of anxiety, and I didn't know what that felt like yet. And so I kept on working there, and I tell you guys, throughout the time that I worked there, also, is this not just like the cutest? I'm so obsessed with that. Throughout the time that I worked there, my boss, who was in charge of me, switched at least 6 times. My desk, like my actual physical, I finally got a desk and a computer, but my actual physical place that I was working from, I think switched like 12 times, maybe. And then towards the end when I worked there, I literally wasn't even doing content creation anymore. They switched my whole entire job title to be working on product development. Like, there were just so many crazy things. It was like a newer company, and it was absolutely crazy. And on top of that, after I started working there, this girl started working there with me, and she actually was a good friend of mine. And she was kind to me, and we were really actually good friends. She was one of my only friends in the city. But as time went on, things started getting weird. I was in a big car accident while I worked there, and I was like, not hospitalized, but I had to go to the chiropractor for weeks and weeks afterward because my car went off the road during the winter. It was like super icy out, and I went into a ditch and slammed into the end of the ditch, which was really scary. I probably shouldn't have walked away from that, but I did. My car was totaled, but I was fine. It also ended up being in water, and so like I thought I was gonna drown. It was really scary. Anyways, but when all that happened, up until that point, she and I had been really close friends. And then it was like she fell off the face of the earth because she started becoming friends with another guy that we worked with who hated me, despised me. He really did not like me. And he went on to become a more like higher up person at this company. And he had snapped at me for turning on light switches. He was one of those people that didn't want the lights on. I don't understand that. Anytime I would turn on a light, he would yell at me, like actually yell at me. And so eventually I brought it up with my supervisor, and I got in trouble for talking to the person in charge of me about what was going on because I didn't talk to that person first. It was a really weird situation in which I felt like I wasn't allowed to have thoughts or feelings or feel uncomfortable because I wasn't allowed to share those thoughts with anybody that was higher up in the company, which was really weird to me. I got in trouble multiple times for trying to talk to my manager about what was going on, and I got in trouble for many different times. It was a weird system of when I would get in trouble, which felt really arbitrary and still feels very arbitrary at the time. So there's lots of other things, like they would have all these talks with us where they would walk us out in front of all the sales team, and we'd walk from our marketing space all the way in front of everybody in the sales team, so you always knew, they knew when you were getting talked to. And they would take us to a separate room and then have a talk with us, and so many people were scared because many people got fired from this marketing department for not being committed enough to, do I care if you know the company name ViewRail? For not being committed enough to the ViewRail vision. So if you weren't committed enough, you could get fired. It wasn't even like you did anything wrong, but if you were not living, breathing this company, then that was seen as a downfall of yours. So strange looking back. Like, this is so fun to talk about because I'm like, what are they thinking? Like, who wants to spend their whole life committed only to making somebody else money? Like, it was literally a stair supply company. Why would I want to be super committed to the ViewRail vision? I don't know. It's strange. So going on from there, this dude, he does not like me. So this guy does not like me. He has talked to multiple people about how I am fake and how, like, I'm just like a typical girl kind of a thing. Super annoying. And so eventually my manager sits down with both of us so we can talk about our feelings, and I talked to him about it, and he's like, oh, you wanna be real? You want me to tell you what I actually think of you? Sure, let's do this. And he's like, yeah, you don't deserve your job. And what else did he say? He was like, yeah, you have this stupid bubbly personality, and that personality might be able to fool other people, but it's never going to fool me. Like, you might be able to fool other people, but you can't do that to me. I know who you are. And I'm just like, who does he think he is? Like, to say that my personality is, like, all for show or just, like, fake, it was really devastating. This whole situation was insanely devastating. All of the people that I worked with, I just felt like everybody turned on me. Everybody liked me. I got along with people, and then all of a sudden, it's like this guy had it out for me, and he was so mean. So mean. But I kept on staying. At this point, I was so upset. I hated my life. I hated working there. I hated where I was living. I literally was renting the basement of this house with this girl who was an really, I don't want to say OCD, although I think she is actually diagnosed, but she literally, like, she would get angry with me if I didn't wipe down every counter with Windex after I had been done using the kitchen. Like, it was a strange time in my life where I hated going to work. I hated coming home. I lived in a basement with no light. During the day, I was at this workplace that had literally the opportunity for light, but I wasn't allowed to ever turn on the lights. Like, all of these things that now I would not even consider putting up with that. Like, I would not. I would never put myself through that again, but I didn't know. It was my first job. And so I was more willing to put up with crap that I now know is not okay to put up with. So I had all these people talking about me behind my back about how I was faking, like, I don't even know, like, how I was bubbly, but, like, I don't even know why they hated me, but they did. They hated me. And they would talk about me behind my back. And there's a lot more that happened, and a lot of it I've tried really hard to work to not think about all the time anymore. And I think I'm at the point now where I realize, hey, this was just a really, really awful work kind of environment, work situation. And what they said about me in that situation doesn't make it true about me. You know, I think for a long time I struggled being like, am I fake? Like, am I bubbly and I'm fooling people with who I am? But I think it's important, especially to, maybe you've been through something similar where people have said really awful things about you that make you question who you are. I think it's really helpful to remember that the people that are saying things about you are never going to know you as well as you know yourself, as well as the people that love you know you, and as well as like your friends, your husband, your boyfriend, they know you. So I think it's really easy to take what those people say and be like, oh, maybe they see something in me that I don't see. Maybe they're right. But something I've really had to work hard at remembering, especially because I am a person that's really, really always going to remember what people say about me, which is not fun, but I've really had to work hard at remembering that just because they said something about me doesn't make it true. And I think that a lot of really toxic work environments are really likely to try to tell you who you are when they don't actually know who you are. Like, they're only seeing a piece of you. They're seeing you at work. Maybe you hate your job and they see somebody that's frustrated or grumpy or whatever. But I just think it's really important to remember that even people who you are not working with, maybe your family, maybe you grow up and you feel like your family just does not know you and they don't realize who you are and they think that they know and they say things about you, but they are not right. Maybe they have said things about you and they're just not right. They just have no idea. It's really hard to be able to distance yourself from what people say about you and bad experiences and what they've taught you and what they've made you feel that you are. I think it's really important to do the work and to try your best to work through what are lies and what are truths. Because sometimes maybe some of the things that they said about me at my work and some of the things that they did or said, some of them helped me to understand myself better and understand how I react in situations and what I'm able to handle and what I will not tolerate again. And I think that that's important too. Not fun, but helpful-ish, I guess. So I know that that's not the most toxic work environment of all time. It really felt like it at the time, though, because I literally would go home and just cry every night. I hated it. I hated working there. I was told over and over, hey, you're a salaried employee, by this guy that hated me. He was like, why don't you take work home? And I was like, because I don't need to take work home. And he's like, well, you're a salaried employee, and that means that you take work home, that you get as much done as you can to earn that yearly amount because you're not hourly. You need to be able to do more than what you can do at the workplace. And looking at that, I'm just like, what are you talking about? That is ridiculous. I would never expect that of somebody else if I was paying them a yearly salary. Like, it's just so insane what people think is okay. And also, I do feel like since I was a young female, some of the guys that worked at this place, and there were many men, I do feel like they just weren't always the nicest to me. And I wasn't married, and my boyfriend, he lived in Maryland, and I didn't have anybody nearby, and it just was like, I just know who I am so much more now. I have learned more about myself. I have been doing this job where I work and resell clothing online for myself now for over 2 years, maybe. I have been confirming to myself over and over again what is true about me, what I'm capable of, and that what people have said to me, about me, what people have made me believe about myself that was not true, that those hold no more sway over me than what I think, what I believe, what Jeremy thinks of me, what my family, my friends think of me. And that's been a rough road. And I hesitate to share even like my experiences with you guys because I know that there have been so many worse experiences out there, but it doesn't make mine any less valid because those experiences led me to where I am today. And because I felt so I didn't feel like I had any control when I worked there. I didn't feel like I could leave. I felt completely trapped. Like I was making good money and I hated every second of my life. But, it's better than not making good money, right? Oh my gosh, no. I feel so sad for that version of me. Because I felt so trapped. I wasn't trapped. I could have left at any time. And I just kept on holding out and waiting for it to get better, and it only got worse. It was so bad by the end, where just so many people were so cruel to me, and it scarred me for so many years. And it made me think too, after I finished working at this place, I went home and lived with my parents for a while, and I literally lost myself. I started having anxiety attacks all the time, and I couldn't do anything. I would lay there and just be so panicked at all times. And I started going to counseling, and I started doing all these things to really fight through that anxiety that I didn't know where to come from. And it wasn't until I started like doing counseling and figuring out what was going on that I had this thought, and I had this lie now in my mind that this is what all jobs were like, and that I was never going to find anything that I would enjoy, that I would literally never be happy, that I couldn't find something that would bring me joy, because work was hard and work was horrible and work was evil, and I couldn't do it, and I wasn't made for it. So I just had all these thoughts that were feeding me all this anxiety. And then we fast forward to probably about July of 2021, when I decided to go full-time with reselling and with thrifting and with YouTube. And I wasn't even planning to talking about all of this, but it's just so incredible for me being in that really dark spot after working at a very toxic work environment, feeling like I would never find anything I would like, feeling like there was no joy left in my life, and that I wouldn't be able to ever make it because I was bad in the core of who I was, which is so sad. To here today, sharing my life with people online from all around the world, which is so fun. I love it so much. Having joy again and loving what I do. I literally get a thrift all the time, which I love. I thrift. I take pictures of clothes. I get to talk to you guys online, and I sell clothes. I find them in places where they won't get a second life, and I give them that, and I help with sustainability in the earth. And I just feel like I have purpose. I know it's always been true, but I feel like I have purpose. I feel happy. I feel joyful. Jeremy and I bought a house. I have all this space for my business, and it's not always perfect, but I'm working on it. And we have an exchange student, GU, who lives with us, and I am planning, Jeremy and I are going to be moving back towards our home, back towards our families in Indiana, hopefully this year. And like, there's so much that I didn't feel like I would ever find in my life, and I have so many things that I'm so grateful for. I feel like God has really been there for me throughout this whole journey, and I feel so blessed. And I never would have gotten to this point, and I would have never found any of this if I would have just given up after that experience at my workplace, where I just felt like that was it for me, that there was no hope after that. And it sounds so ridiculous looking back, but mental illness, like, it really does mess with your mind. And for me, I thought that was it. I thought that I would never recover, and I have. And I'm here to tell you that you can too. That if you have had a similar experience where you just felt like, not even maybe in work, but people are saying lies and making you feel that you are a problem, that you are the problem, and that you have always been the problem, and there's something wrong with you, or in a work environment, if they say things or make you feel inferior, then I'm here to tell you too, like, there's a way out. You're not trapped. You have options, and you have people around you that love you and that will fight for you. And always, always, you can see counselors. Counseling is so important, and I have been through it, and I know how valuable it was for me in my journey. And so, wow, I had no intentions of talking this long, of sharing all of that, but I am an open book. If you guys have questions, let me know. I really need to work on some of these clothes now. Oh my gosh, I almost cried like 5 times. But I would love to hear from you guys too. If you guys have dealt with a toxic work environment, share your experiences down below. The biggest lie, this is something I've heard a lot in church circles, but I think it applies in all circles too. But the biggest lie the devil wants you to believe is that you are alone. That your story is unique, and that nobody has felt the way you feel. And so even though sometimes during me sharing, I'm like, wow, this doesn't sound as terrible out loud as it feels in my head, I think it is probably helpful, hopefully, to one of you guys who has felt the same way, who knows that feeling of hopelessness and despair that comes with feeling like you're stuck in a job that you hate and there's no way out. Yeah, that's not a fun feeling. Not a fun feeling at all. So now I have tons of things to put on hangers because I didn't, get very many of those done. So let me keep putting things on hangers, and we'll do a little montage, and I'll get on some maybe some inspiring music. Let's do that because I have lots to do left before I can start taking pictures. So, okay, cue it. Let's do it.
I've seen a lot of change, been through a lot of pain. Some things are not the same as they were a year ago, but all will be okay. I move on each and every day. The past is where it stays, way back a year ago. I've changed for the better this time. I thought I would never be fine. I strive just to say I'm alright, and for the first time in a long time I'm alright. I've seen a lot of change, been through a lot of pain. Some things are not the same as they were a year ago, but all will be okay. I move on each and every day. The past is where it stays, way back a year ago. I'm not falling, I'll push all my chips and call all in. I'll bet on myself, you keep stalling. I hear destiny and it's calling. I'll keep my head up high through the downs and lows, and we're all going in life. Still nobody knows, but I'ma choose what's right and take what comes and goes. And ain't no one in life holding me back no more. I've seen a lot of change, been through a lot of pain. Some things are not the same as they were a year ago, but all will be okay. I move on each and every day. The past is where it stays, way back a year ago. Back a year ago.
So I'm gonna finish up taking pictures, and then I'm going to go and have quite the listing day. I want to get a lot of these things listed as quickly as possible because a lot of them are really good brands that should be able to resell for a good amount of money. So I'm gonna try to work on probably editing this video because she's going live today, and then I'm also going to do a lot of listings. So with that was working with me today, learning about some toxic work environments, and I hope that you guys feel seen and known and loved here on my channel. So thank you guys so much for joining me today. Let me know in the comments down below what your experiences have been like, and if you guys like this kind of honest realness and thrifting content, then make sure to hit subscribe. It's the best and easiest way to support my channel. So thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you guys are having an amazing day. I hope you have an amazing rest of your day, and until the next video, bye.